In old age, focus on yourself and stay silent. Advice from old people. There comes a time in life when the noise of the world starts to fade and a new kind of clarity sets in. The years have passed, filled with responsibilities, sacrifices, and countless moments spent prioritizing others. You've given your time, energy, and love to family, friends, work, and society. And now, as you enter the later years of life, an important question arises: what about me? Many older adults reach this stage only to realize that much of what they once invested in, whether relationships, careers, or social roles, no longer gives back in the way they expected. The world keeps moving forward. Younger generations are focused on their own paths, and the appreciation that seemed inevitable often never comes. This realization can be painful, but it is also liberating. Now is the time to turn inward, to focus on yourself without guilt, and to embrace the power of silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because wisdom teaches that not everything needs to be said. 1. The myth of reciprocal sacrifice. Let go of expectations. A lifetime of giving shapes a person. You spend decades sacrificing, pouring love, time, and energy into others. You raise children, support friends, dedicate yourself to your career, and help those in need. It feels natural, even necessary, because deep down, you believe in the idea that kindness comes back around. You expect that when the time comes, the care you have given so freely will be returned. But as the years pass, a quiet realization sets in. It often isn't. This is one of the hardest truths of old age. The people you nurtured are now wrapped up in their own lives. Your children are busy with careers and families of their own. The friendships you once cherished may have faded, replaced by new connections and responsibilities. Colleagues you once worked alongside have moved on, and the world that once needed you so much no longer pauses to check in. The sacrifices you made, the late nights, the selfless acts, they are not forgotten, but they are also not repaid in the way you once imagined. This realization can feel like a deep wound, a betrayal of everything you believed about love, loyalty, and human nature. It is easy to slip into resentment, to keep a tally of all the ways people have failed to give back what you once gave so freely. But this path leads only to bitterness, and bitterness is a heavy burden to carry in old age. Instead, there is another path, one of acceptance, one of peace. Let go of the expectation that others will care for you as you cared for them. This does not mean you were wrong to give. Generosity is never a mistake. It simply means understanding that life moves forward and people, especially younger generations, are consumed by their own struggles, just as you once were. When you were younger, you did not pause to consider how much your parents longed for your attention. You were too busy building a life. Now, the cycle continues, and the same is happening to you. But here is the truth. You are not a victim. You are not abandoned. You are simply at a different stage of life, one where your focus must shift. If you spend these years waiting for gratitude, waiting for visits, waiting for validation, you will be disappointed. But if you release the need for reciprocity, if you stop expecting and start simply being, you will find a new kind of freedom. This is your time now, not to give until you are empty, not to chase appreciation, but to live for yourself. If love and care come your way, receive them with an open heart, but do not make them a condition for your happiness. Let go of the idea that your worth is tied to what others give back. Your worth has never depended on anyone else. It has always been yours to define. 2. The freedom in silence. Not every thought needs to be spoken. There comes a point in life when you realize that words, no matter how carefully chosen, do not always reach the ears of those who need to hear them. When you are young, you feel an overwhelming urge to explain yourself, to make others understand your thoughts, your experiences, your wisdom. You argue, debate, and correct because you believe that if you just say the right thing in the right way, people will finally listen. But as you grow older, you begin to see the futility in this. Most people do not listen to understand. They listen to respond. They are not searching for wisdom. They are searching for validation of their own beliefs. Silence is not weakness. It is not indifference. It is the quiet power of a person who no longer feels the need to prove anything. It is the realization that peace is more valuable than winning an argument, that understanding is deeper than speaking, and that not every thought needs to be shared. There was a time when you may have fought to be heard, but now you see that some battles are not worth fighting. You no longer have to explain your choices to those who have already made up their minds. You do not need to justify your values, your boundaries, or your way of living to people who are not truly listening. There is a great relief in stepping back, in choosing silence over exhaustion. You begin to see that not every disagreement needs a resolution, and not every conversation deserves your energy. You learn that wisdom is not about forcing others to see what you see. It is about knowing when to speak and when to let things unfold on their own. People must learn their own lessons just as you once did. No amount of explaining can replace experience, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people walk their own path, even if you see the mistakes ahead. Silence does not mean isolation. It does not mean disengagement from the world. It means choosing where and how to use your voice. It means speaking only when your words will bring clarity, not conflict. It means understanding that some things are better left unsaid, not because they are not important, but because your peace is more important than proving a point. With age comes the wisdom to know when to be still, when to observe, and when to let go. You are no longer bound by the need to be understood by others, because you have reached the most important understanding of all. The only person who truly needs to understand you is you. And in that realization, there is freedom. 3. Emotional self-sufficiency. Find joy without relying on others. There is a quiet loneliness that settles in as you grow older. It is not the kind that comes from being physically alone, but the kind that comes from realizing how much the world has changed around you. People you once depended on are no longer present in the same way. Children who once needed you so desperately now have lives of their own. Friends who once filled your days with laughter are gone, either through distance or time. The roles you played, provider, protector, nurturer, begin to fade, and with them, the sense of identity you once held so firmly. It is in this space, in this shifting reality, that a choice must be made. You can mourn what is no longer there, clinging to the past, waiting for others to make you feel needed again. Or you can step into the truth that has been waiting for you all along. You are your own greatest source of fulfillment. For much of life, happiness is shaped by external factors, relationships, achievements, the sense of being valued by others. But with age comes the understanding that relying on people for joy is a fragile foundation. People change, they leave, they become busy. If your happiness depends on them, then your peace will always be at risk. Emotional self-sufficiency is not about pushing others away. It is about learning to stand on your own, to create a life that is rich and fulfilling even when others are not present. This is not always an easy transition. It requires unlearning the idea that love must always come from the outside. It requires shifting your focus inward and asking yourself, what brings me joy? What have I always wanted to do but never had time for? Maybe it's art, music, gardening, or writing. Maybe it's traveling, even if only to places nearby that you've never taken the time to explore. Maybe it's something as simple as sitting quietly with a good book without needing anyone else to fill the silence. True emotional freedom comes when you realize that your life is still yours to shape. You do not need an invitation to enjoy yourself. You do not need permission to live fully. You do not need anyone else to validate your existence. The moments of solitude that once felt empty can become moments of peace, of deep appreciation for the world around you. If people reach out, welcome them. If they do not let it diminish you. Learn to enjoy your own company, to take pleasure in small things, to see solitude not as loneliness, but as space to reconnect with yourself. The love you spent a lifetime giving to others is now yours to reclaim. Let it be enough. Let you be enough. 4. The art of saying no. Set boundaries without guilt. For much of your life, saying yes was second nature. Yes to responsibilities. Yes to obligations. Yes to the needs of others that always seemed to come before your own. You said yes because you believed it was the right thing to do, because you were a parent, a spouse, a friend, a worker, a provider. You said yes out of love, out of duty, out of the unspoken expectation that your time, your energy, and your sacrifices would always be needed. But now, in this stage of life, something has shifted. The demands of others have not disappeared, but your capacity to meet them has changed. The exhaustion that once felt temporary now lingers. The obligations that once seemed necessary now feel like burdens. And yet, the guilt remains. The fear that saying no will make you seem selfish, ungrateful, or distant keeps you from setting the boundaries you so desperately need. But here is the truth that too many people learn too late. Saying no is not selfish. It is self-preservation. It is recognizing that your time is no longer limitless, that your energy is not something to be endlessly given away without consequence. It is understanding that your peace matters just as much as anyone else's, and that you are allowed, more than allowed, entitled to protect it. Setting boundaries does not mean shutting people out. It does not mean refusing to help or turning away from those you love. It simply means choosing where your energy goes, deciding what is truly worth your time, and refusing to be drained by obligations that no longer serve you. It means recognizing that just because you have always been the person others could rely on does not mean you must continue being that person at the cost of your own well being. It is not your job to be everything for everyone. You do not have to answer every phone call, agree to every favor, or tolerate relationships that leave you feeling used rather than valued. You do not have to say yes to things that bring you stress just to keep the peace. Peace is not found in constant giving. It is found in knowing when to step back, when to prioritize yourself, and when to say, I cannot do this anymore. The people who truly care for you will understand. And those who do not, those who only saw you as someone to take from, will be the ones who disappear. Let them. Your life is no longer about proving your worth through sacrifice. You have done enough, given enough, been enough. Now, it is time to give to yourself. Say no without guilt. Say no without explanation. Say no because you have earned the right to put yourself first. 5. Physical and mental health. Prioritize your well-being now. The body and mind you carry today are not the same as they were decades ago. Time has left its mark on your skin, in your joints, within your memory. You feel it in the way you move, in the way you think, in the way you wake up each morning, either with gratitude or with aches that remind you of the years that have passed. But while aging is inevitable, decline is not. Much of what people assume is just getting old is actually the result of neglect. Years of putting others first, years of ignoring your own needs, years of believing that self-care was something you could put off until later. Well, later is here. And if you do not prioritize your well-being now, no one else will. Your body is asking for your attention. It does not need to be young again, but it does need to be cared for. Movement is not just for the strong, it is for anyone who wishes to maintain their independence. You do not need to run marathons, but you do need to walk, to stretch, to keep your muscles from stiffening into disuse. You do not need a strict diet, but you do need to nourish yourself, to choose foods that fuel rather than deplete you. What you eat, how you move, how you rest, it all determines not just how long you live, but how well you live. But well-being is not just about the body. The mind, too, must be cared for, must be given space to grow rather than shrink. Too many people spend their later years trapped in routines that bring them no joy, dwelling on regrets, allowing their thoughts to spiral into bitterness or loneliness. But the mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you fill it with worry, with resentment, with isolation, that is what will take root. If you nourish it with curiosity, with learning, with gratitude, it will remain strong even as the years pass. Do not let your world become small. Read books that challenge you. Learn something new, even if no one expects you to. Surround yourself with things that bring you peace: music, nature, art, whatever speaks to you. Do not allow old age to be defined by deterioration when it can be defined by growth. There is no reward for neglecting yourself. No one will hand you back the years you spent taking care of others at your own expense, but you do have now. And right now, you have a choice: to continue living as though your well-being is optional, or to finally claim it as a necessity. The strength of your body, the clarity of your mind, the peace in your heart, all of it is within your power. Choose to take care of yourself, not because you hope to add years to your life, but because you hope to add life to your years. 6. Let go of the need for approval. You do not need to explain yourself. For so much of life, you were taught to seek approval. As a child, you learned to please your parents. As a young adult, you worked hard to earn respect. In your career, you strived for recognition. In your family, you sacrificed to be valued. And at every stage, a quiet belief took root. If I do the right things, if I am kind, if I am responsible, if I give enough, people will see me, appreciate me, understand me. But now, as the years have passed, you realize that this validation, this acknowledgement you thought would come, rarely arrives in the way you imagined. People are too consumed by their own lives to reflect on yours. The appreciation you once hoped for may never come. And if it does, it may not feel as satisfying as you once believed it would. The question then is simple. Are you still waiting for approval? And if so, why? At this stage in life, you do not need to prove yourself to anyone. You have already lived, already given, already learned. You have made mistakes and grown from them. You have loved and lost. You have worked and built and sacrificed. You do not need to explain your choices. You do not need to justify your beliefs. You do not need to ask permission to live the way that feels right to you. Too many people in old age continue to shape their lives around what others think. They hold back their opinions to avoid upsetting family. They hesitate to set boundaries because they fear being judged. They suppress their true desires because they worry about how they will be perceived. But there is an incredible freedom in realizing that you do not need to answer to anyone but yourself. Not everyone will understand your decisions. Not everyone will agree with you. That is okay. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with who you are. You are responsible only for living in a way that brings you peace. The sooner you release the need for approval, the lighter you will feel. The opinions of others are not your burden to carry. Your happiness does not need to be explained. If something brings you joy, let it. If something brings you peace, embrace it. If you no longer wish to engage in certain conversations, in certain obligations, in certain expectations, walk away without guilt. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be true to yourself. In the end, the only approval that matters is your own. Not everyone will see your worth, but that does not mean it is any less real. You do not need to convince anyone of your value. You have already spent a lifetime proving yourself. Now, it is time to simply be. 7. Finding peace in letting go, accepting life as it is. There comes a moment in life when you realize that no amount of effort, worry, or resistance can change the past. The choices you made, the people you lost, the moments that slipped away, they are fixed in time, beyond your reach. You can revisit them in memory, you can replay them in your mind, but you cannot rewrite them. And yet, many people spend their later years caught in an endless cycle of regret, resentment, or longing for what could have been. They hold on to old disappointments, past betrayals, and unfulfilled dreams, as if clinging to them will somehow make them right. But peace does not come from grasping at things you cannot change. Peace comes from learning to let go. Let go of the need for closure where none exists. Not every conflict will be resolved. Not every wound will be acknowledged. Not every apology you deserve will be given. Waiting for others to make things right only prolongs your suffering. True healing comes when you decide that you no longer need the past to be different in order for you to move forward. Let go of the idea that you must have control. So much of life was spent trying to hold things together, your family, your career, your relationships. You worked tirelessly to fix problems, to keep people close, to shape the world in a way that made sense. But control is an illusion. People will do as they please. Situations will unfold as they are meant to. The more you resist what is, the more you suffer. Accepting life as it is does not mean giving up. It means freeing yourself from the exhausting battle of trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. Let go of the weight of expectations. There was a time when you believed that if you did everything right, if you were kind, if you gave enough, then life would reward you in equal measure. But life is not always fair. Some kindness goes unreturned. Some sacrifices go unnoticed. Some people walk away despite all you have done for them. Holding on to resentment only keeps you tethered to pain. Instead, choose to release it. Not for them, for you. Let go of the fear of what comes next. Aging is often met with anxiety, fear of decline, fear of irrelevance, fear of what lies beyond this life. But fear does not add more time. It does not make the days richer or the moments sweeter. The only way to truly live is to embrace the unknown, to trust in the natural flow of life, to replace fear with gratitude for the time you do have. There's a deep relief in surrendering to what is, in understanding that not everything needs to be solved, fixed, or controlled, in allowing life to unfold without resistance. Letting go is not losing, it is making space for peace. And at this stage in life, peace is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Final thoughts. Your life, your terms. There comes a point in life when you must ask yourself a simple but profound question: whose life am I living? For so many years, your time, your choices, even your identity were shaped by responsibilities, obligations, and the needs of others. You were a parent, a spouse, a provider, a caregiver, a worker, a friend. You played the roles expected of you, often at the expense of your own desires, your own peace, and your own sense of self. But now, in this stage of life, the roles have changed, the expectations have shifted, and the most important realization you can come to is this: you do not have to live for anyone else anymore. This is not a call for selfishness, but for self reclamation. You have spent enough years proving, pleasing, and providing. You have spent enough time worrying about how others see you, whether they appreciate you, whether they will remember what you have done for them. The truth is, life moves forward whether you are holding on to it or not. People will live as they choose. The world will continue to turn. And if you are waiting for the right moment to finally choose yourself, to prioritize your own happiness, to embrace your own peace, that moment is now. It is easy to get caught in the habit of waiting, waiting for your children to call more often, waiting for old friends to reconnect, waiting for an apology that may never come, waiting for the world to slow down and acknowledge all that you have given. But waiting does not stop time. It only steals it from you. Every moment spent longing for something outside of your control is a moment lost, a moment that could have been spent in joy, in discovery, in appreciation of the life you still have. Let go of the need for validation. Let go of the idea that you must explain yourself, that you must make others understand why you are choosing to live differently now. You do not need permission to put yourself first. You do not need approval to set boundaries, to walk away from what no longer serves you, to seek the kind of life that brings you peace. The opinions of others are theirs to carry. You do not have to hold on to them. Do not waste these years living for someone else's expectations. Do not let guilt, obligation, or fear keep you from embracing the freedom that has always been yours. The world does not owe you anything, just as you do not owe it anything more than you have already given. What you have now, this time, this stage of life, is a gift, a chance to live not as you were told you should, but as you truly want. Find joy in the small things. Wake up without the weight of unnecessary burdens. Take care of your body not because you fear aging, but because you deserve to feel strong. Nurture your mind not because you have something to prove, but because curiosity and learning make life richer. Surround yourself with people who bring you peace, and do not be afraid to let go of those who do not. Speak only when your words bring meaning, and remain silent when your peace is more valuable than being heard. And most of all, live without apology. Your life is yours now, fully, completely, unapologetically. Do not waste another moment waiting for permission to embrace it. The only approval you ever truly needed was your own. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.